Hi, it is Miss Ruby. Oh, no, what do we do? There we go. It's Miss Ruby, and I am here with Miss Sally. And some of you guys, if you've been to, if you go to the schools of Ross County, you may have met Miss Sally before. She likes to come to your school and do fun STEM and STEAM programs. And today, she is going to tell us all about the science of baking bread. Hi, Miss Sally.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here today. This is a program that I have done many, many times in the school. I've probably made thousands of loaves of bread with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of kids throughout my career working for Ohio State University Extension here in Ross County. And I am really excited to go ahead and get started. So I'm ready.
I am excited too. I can't wait to see the bread.
All right. So I guess we're going to go ahead and we are going to get started. If you, let's see, a couple of housekeeping things. First is I don't have on a mask. I do have a mask, but I don't have it on right now because I am actually in the extension kitchen and I am the only one in here right now. So I do not have a mask on. And then the second thing is we are going to be cooking today, and I've already washed my hands. And washing your hands with soap and water is always the first thing that we need to do whenever we're going to start cooking. So if you're going to cook or any kind of baking, any kind of activities, you want to wash your hands with soap and with water. Rinse them really, really well, because today we are going to be kneading our dough. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. We'll be using our hands. So you want to make sure all the soap is rinsed off really well. So I've already done all that, and we are going to go ahead and get started with a couple things. I believe if you were part of our Take and Make, you went to the library and you picked up one of these kits that has all your supplies in it, and it has a recipe in it. The recipe can also be found, it's included in the bag, but it can also be found in the chat box if you'd like to make this at a later time. Or if you are watching and you weren't able to pick up one of the kits, that recipe is available for you. I'm going to go ahead and move my computer just a tiny bit. We'll go through the process, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this and have fun. So I'm going to swing this around so you can kind of see the kitchen counter just a little bit. So what we're going to do is, the first thing you want to do is you're going to pull out your recipe, and you can see that today we are going to be using warm water, yeast, sugar, vegetable oil, salt, flour, and we're actually going to be using two different kinds of flour today. We are using a bread flour, which is made out of wheat, and we're also going to be using a different kind of flour that some people may not be using all the time, and that is a soy flour. And soy flour is made out of soybeans. The cool thing about soy flour is it has high protein in it, and it actually gives a little extra protein in your bread so that you have a little bit more protein in your diet. And it helps with the texture. It makes it a more of a chewy, heavier bread instead of a light, fluffy bread. So we're using a couple of those different kinds of flours today. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to lean this down so you can see the process. But the directions on this recipe are super, super simple for this bread in a bag. And we have 8 easy steps. And we'll just follow along and get you guys started. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and take out all your supplies that were in your bag. So we have a big Ziploc baggie. This is a freezer gallon-sized Ziploc baggie, and that's what we're going to actually be mixing our dough in. And then we have all of our ingredients and a pan. So the bread pan is actually just a regular size. It'll make a full-size loaf of bread, so you'll have that. You're going to set that to the side. We're going to use it. Then also the baggie that you had all your items packaged in, we're going to go ahead and keep that because you may want to use that later, and I'll show you that. Our ingredients today, we were talking about them. We have yeast. It's in the little brown baggie. And yeast is a really, if you can look at this baggie really close, I don't know if you can see it, but if you can look at yours, yeast is really cool. It's actually a living microorganism. Like, people don't realize that, and it's so neat. We'll talk about how yeast works in just a second. We have sugar, and this yeast loves to eat the sugar. And how bread gets big. So if you look at a regular sized loaf of bread, it's big and they rise nice and tall. And that is because that yeast actually likes to eat that sugar. So let's say you're getting ready to make this and you have your yeast and your sugar. So I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to kind of do like a Pac-Man thing. So I think a lot of you guys are familiar with Pac-Man. So let's say you have all this sugar, right? And then you have this yeast. It's like the Pac-Man guy. So yeast likes to eat sugar, much like you guys do. So here comes our yeast. It's eating the sugar. It's like, and then it kind of like, it releases, after it eats that sugar, it releases gas into your bread. And that's actually the carbon dioxide. So it eats the sugar up, and it's like, yum. And then it releases the gas into your bread, and that is what makes your bread dough rise, and which makes a big loaf of bread. If you look at a loaf of bread, you see tiny, tiny little holes in the bread, and that is from that yeast eating that sugar all up. So that's our ingredients, yeast and sugar. Then we have some salt. Salt lends some good flavor. You don't want to put too much salt in, though. Then you have our soy flour, and if you look really closely at it, you can see that the soy flour is a little more yellow of a color than our wheat flour or our bread flour. So those are our ingredients today, and what we're going to be doing is getting started. So you want to take that freezer bag that you guys had, take that bag. And if you're working by yourself and we're trying to measure some liquid ingredients, it's like, how am I going to do this by myself? Well, if you take your bread pan and you put that baggie down in your bread pan, that's going to hold it nice and still. And the only other ingredient, let's see, two other ingredients that you'll have a packet, you have oil in your kit. But we did not put the water in there for many reasons. We didn't want everything spilling out. So what we're going to need to do is get 3 cups of warm water. So I'm going to turn this water on real quick, and I'm going to get 3/4 of a cup. And we want to hold this up. I'm going to flip this around a little bit. Maybe I'll just squat down here. So whenever you're looking at liquid ingredients, you want to look at the liquid ingredients in the liquid measuring cup at eye level. If it's at eye level, then you can tell if your measurements are correct. If you're looking down on it from above, it might look like your measurements are correct, but you might have a little too much or not enough. So we're going to double check that, and it is right at 3/4 of a cup. We're going to go ahead and pour that in our baggie. And that's, like I said, that's being held up by your bread pan. Now, if you have a partner helping you, then that other person can help hold that baggie. But for right now, we're going to, I'm working by myself, so I'm just going to put it in like this. The next thing is we are going to add this yeast. And all the ingredients have been pre-measured for you guys. And this is 1 teaspoon of yeast. So we're going to go ahead and pour that yeast down into that water and get that all out. Shake it. All right. Then the next thing we want to do is give that yeast something to eat, because we talked about how it likes to eat sugar and make our bread get big. So this is 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, and it's already pre-measured. And we're going to go ahead and put it in that bag. Now what you want to do is zip this Ziploc baggie up, and you want to give this baggie a squish. Now don't squish too hard, because you don't want your stuff going like whoosh and squirting out all over the place. You're just going to like squish this up a little bit. Here we go. You see that yeast is all dissolving down inside there? And you cannot see it happening, but that yeast is eating up that sugar and it's dissolving. So it's going to start working. And if I would keep squishing this for a few minutes, you could see that I'm starting to get some air build up in the bag. And that air that is getting in the bag right now is from that yeast releasing that air. So that's kind of cool to watch. If you have time and you want to let this sit for a minute, you can do that. But we'll go ahead and keep on moving here today. Next thing we want to add is 1 tablespoon. We are going to add 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. Now today I'm going to use this vegetable oil that I have. And this vegetable oil is just regular soybean oil. But I'm pretty sure in your packages, we included some little packets. I think Subway donated them, which was super nice of them to do that. But I think you guys should have 3 packets of that. So you'll want to cut the tops off of those and put the contents of all 3 of those in your baggie, because we figured out the measurements and the percentage, and your 3 little tiny oil packets equals 1 tablespoon. So we are going to take this is a tablespoon, and we are going to fill it all the way up, and we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil to our bag. And then you guys can either use vegetable oil from your house. If you have canola oil, that would be fine. But, you can kind of use what's on hand. So then we are going to go ahead, and it's kind of nice to go ahead and just mix that in. Just give it a couple little swishes again. The next thing is we want to add our salt. And again, our salt is pre-measured, and we have 1 teaspoon. So if I would actually pour this salt into a teaspoon, that's how much it would be. It would end up being 1 teaspoon in here. We're going to go ahead and add that gently in there, get that all down in. And let's just give that a little mix. There we go. All righty. So then we start getting to the really fun part of making the bread, which is you're going to start adding some flour to it. So we have all these liquid ingredients in here, but now we need to make it into a dough. So you have some bread flour that has been pre-measured, and this is 2 cups of bread flour. And what I would like to do is take out about 1 tablespoon, kind of a scoop. You're going to put it in a little bowl, and we're going to use that in a couple minutes. So you want to put that down in there, save that for a minute. Then you're going to take this, and you're going to take about half of it. Here's my measuring cup. So you can either, if you have a scoop or a spoon, you don't have to use a measuring cup. If you just want to use, a big spoon like this, you could. You could use a measuring cup. I'm going to get about half of that out. You don't have to be exact with it. So I got some scooped out in there. It's about half maybe. I'm going to go ahead and add that into the bread. After I get that in there, that is my wheat flour, okay? So now we want to add that soy flour that adds that extra protein. And soy flour was measured out in this bag, and it's 1/8 of a cup. So 1/8 of a cup is actually 2 teaspoons. Or I'm sorry, 1/8 of a cup is actually 2 tablespoons. Big difference. So we are going to take that soy flour. We are going to put that down in here like this. And you are going to notice the difference of the yellower soy flour and the white wheat flour. Now you have some dry ingredients mixed up with your wet. This is where you get to start having a lot of fun with your bread dough. I'm going to squish out some of that air. And again, that air is coming from that yeast working. It's eating all that sugar up, releasing that air. You can see what that looks like. Looks like a big mess, but it doesn't even look that appealing, does it? If you look right here, if you look close at your bag, you're going to see something that looks really, really yellow. That is your oil, and it's super important to get your oil all mixed up with your bread flour and your soy flour. So the oil kind of likes to separate itself. Let's see. There we go. But we are going to go like this. And we are just going to start smashing away and having fun with this. Squish, squish, squish. You can shake it down. You can squish it. What's it feel like when you do this? What do you think it feels like? I've had people tell me it feels like they're making slime. I've had people say, it kind of feels like you're smashing pudding in a bag. So this doesn't look like a very good dough yet, does it? That's because we need to add still more dry ingredients. We have all those wet ingredients in there, added a little bit of flour, but it still looks pretty kind of slimy, messy. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to shake that down, and we are going to add the rest of the flour. Now you took about, I'm going to say you took about a cup out or something like that. So about half of it is left. So real carefully, and if you want to, you can place it back in that pan to help hold it still. Open that up. Pour the rest of your flour in there. There we go. And then we are going to zip this up one more time. You want to make sure it gets sealed really well because you don't want it squishing out the top. The other thing is it makes it easier if you can squeeze some of the air out. So you zip it almost all the way across. You leave it open just about, I don't know, just a little smidgen, about an inch. Get some of that air out. And then make sure that's all sealed back up. Then you get to have fun and squish the rest of this in. It's a little harder now to get those dry ingredients mixed in because you've already absorbed a lot of your liquid in. You're just going to mix it. And while we are mixing it, we are going to talk about the importance of all these different ingredients and making sure your ingredients are fresh. Like your yeast, you want to make sure you use like a good yeast. Now the yeast that was included in your kit today, what I had bought bulk yeast, and I actually, if you can see this, I buy a lot of yeast. It is in a huge container. But you will not need that much yeast. If you ever want to make this again, just go to the grocery store and buy, like they make packages of yeast. They come, usually the packages of yeast, there's 3 on a strip. You can cut them apart. You can use like a package of yeast. They also have yeast that's in little jars, like little tiny jars. So you could use that if you thought you were going to make more than just a couple loaves. So then you would always have some yeast to have. That is about the yeast. Now for the soy flour, you can buy that. It's a specialty flour, but you can buy it in the grocery stores like I want to say Kroger's, have it. Walmart, you just need to look around like some of the grocery stores. The other thing would be if the old home place out by Frankfurt, it's a bulk food store. Some of our bulk food stores have it. So you can buy your soy flour there. And then bread flour, you can buy it like any grocery store. The other thing I wanted to make sure, let you know, it's really important. Say you don't want to go out and buy specifically bread flour or soy flour. You can just replace using all-purpose flour like this. You can actually just use all-purpose flour instead of the bread flour and soy flour. So you would still add your 2 cups of bread flour and 1/8 of a cup, instead of the 1/8 of a cup of soy flour, just add another 1/8 of a cup of all-purpose flour. and your bread will still rise. It'll still be nice and yummy. So I think we got this mixed up pretty good. It's starting to separate from the bag. What you are going to do is that little tiny bit of flour that we saved from before, we are going to go ahead and sprinkle it on the counter. Make sure that you have washed your counter off really well. Or if you have a breadboard or something like that, you can use, get a little bit of flour on your hands. And then the easiest way to get this out of your baggie is just to turn your baggie inside out like this. And it just plops out. There it goes. See how easy that was? Because you did all the mixing in the bag, it just falls out of the bag. So make sure you have a tiny bit of flour on your hands. Then you can push down, and now you get to play with this dough. And this is the part where we are going to knead the dough. And kneading the dough, that's spelled K-N-E-A-D. So you're going to use the palms of your hands like this, and you can push down, or you can use your fists if you want. What you don't want to do is take your fingers and pull your dough apart, because if you pull your dough apart, it makes it sticky, and then you're breaking up the activity of that yeast and where it is starting to activate so it can start to rise. So you want to just push down on it, and you're going to do this several times, and this is so much fun to do. What you could do is you can do this up to 5 or 10 minutes, but you don't have to sit here and watch me do this for 10 minutes. Let me push this down where you guys can see. So see, we're already where I'm like pushing it down, and then I fold it over. I'm pushing it down, tap a little more flour on it because it's starting to stick. And then you just can push it down and you fold it over. And you can do this up like 5 or 10 minutes, and you can have fun with this. Keep going. The more you work that dough, the smoother it gets. Already it's looking better, isn't it? So instead of you guys watching me for 10 minutes kneading this, I'll show you how you go ahead and shape it. But what I do is just kind of roll it up like this. And then I'm shaping it. Almost looks like a baked potato, if you can see that. The bottom has a little bit of a seam on it, and you're going to pinch that closed. I pinched it closed. And then you're going to use this part for your top because it's nice and pretty. Now you're going to take that pan that we used, that you held your baggie in, and if you have cooking spray, you're just going to give this a couple little shots of cooking spray. You're going to set your loaf of bread down in your pan. Look at that. Now you're thinking like, man, that doesn't look very big. That didn't even fill that up. Well, that's because that yeast has to start working. I'm going to show you a loaf that I started working on earlier today. I don't know, about 30 minutes ago. And look how this one has already started to rise, and it is filling this pan in. Now it needs to rise some more. I'm going to say at least probably another 30 minutes. And it'll get real big and fill that whole pan up. So it's going to begin little. Then it's going to start filling this up. And when it gets about an inch above your pan, it is ready to go in the oven. And I am going to show you guys something yummy. Just grab over here. This is one that I've already baked. Look at that. See how the dough rose and it went above the pan? Doesn't that look yummy?
That looks delicious.
Yeah, doesn't that look good? So I will pop it out. Now this one's cooled down. I'm going to let you guys know I didn't just take this out of the oven. I made it a little while ago this morning. When you take this out of the oven, you want to make sure you use your pot holders and things because your oven will be hot. So let's see. We're going to pop this out of here, and I want you to see this is what your yumminess on your loaf of bread that you can make all by yourself using science to figure out how yeast works and how it grows to make something so big and so yummy. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson today on making bread in a bag. I hope you make bread. You have your recipe. If you use your kit or if you want to make it again it'd be great for Thanksgiving.
Yep, and the recipe is in the comments, so that's available for everyone. Thank you,
All
Sally.
right.
That bread looks delicious.
I can't wait to eat some. I'm gonna say it does smell really yummy. I've been smelling it all day. So
what's your favorite thing to put on your bread?
you know, I like bread and butter. I really like bread and butter, but probably my favorite is homemade strawberry jam. Yum.
Ooh, that is good.
Is that what's your favorite?
And you know what? With strawberry jam, if people want to look back on our YouTube page, Lisa Barledge from OSU helped us make strawberry jam this summer. So we have that YouTube video available that people can see how to make strawberry jam too.
And it's so easy to people think like, oh, I could never make a homemade strawberry jam or I could never make homemade bread. But look at that. You have 2 simple recipes, super easy peasy. I know Lisa's strawberry jam is delicious. It is so yummy. So you could, you don't even need a ton of strawberries. You could go to the store right now and probably buy enough strawberries to make, like a small batch of that. So if you took that and then you had this bread and you put that out there for Thanksgiving, people are going to love you and think you are the best cook around. Yum.
And I'm just typing into the chat right now where people can find other events that we have coming up. We have several virtual events coming up, craft events and another cooking event in December. And it's not on the calendar yet, but Sally will be back with us in the new year. We're going to be doing some more STEM events.
I'm super excited. I am so glad that you invited me to come into the library and to be able to do these programs. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for being here. And thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.